Привет, I'm Chuck Olenek. I'm a Ukrainian-American. I was baptized with the name Yaroslav. That gave me the name that I use in the Society for Creative Anachronism. And, you know, from as early as I can remember, I was immersed in Slavic culture, especially Ukrainian culture, by my parents and by my sister. And that led to me teaching history, and since I retired from teaching history, where I used to dress up for the lessons in class, I decided I would start exploring certain topics and, in a way, still teach by putting up videos on my YouTube channel, which would be really cool if you subscribe to, by the way. And what I've been doing in this series called Tales from the Borderland, I've been covering Slavic folklore and mythology and Rus history, or the history of Kyiv, and trying to share this to a broader audience and hoping that maybe it will jumpstart people's interest in the topic, and maybe folks in the society might develop Eastern European personae. So I've been following what's been going on with the various leaders of Kyiv when the Rus or the Rurikid dynasty ruled it. And in one of the previous videos, I mentioned that after Yaroslav the Wise passed on, there was a really rough time period. You had the sons of Yaroslav initially cooperating with each other, but then they went to war on each other for a while. And, this was actually pretty bloody, and they were overturning each other, and it led to all sorts of dynastic issues. And then one of the grandsons of Yaroslav, Volodymyr Monomakh, he gained the throne of Kyiv and managed to provide 12 years of stability. I was thinking more along the lines of, well, it was the sons of Yaroslav that kind of went nuts, and that was like a really troubled time. And then researching further, no, that was actually relatively peaceful, because what we're going to be covering now in what I'm calling the decline of Kyiv, and it's also the sons of Monomakh, in this span of years from 1125, when Volodymyr Monomakh passes on, until 1169, when Kyiv gets sacked by a coalition of native princes. They're led by the Grand Prince of Volodymyr II, who still happened to be one of the Rurikids. Kyiv was ruled by the three sons of Volodymyr Monomakh and their cousins, and power changed hands 21 times in the span of 44 years. 11 of those changes were restorations to power of earlier rulers, and at least one of those went back twice. So when these struggles ended, the Rurikids were still ruling Kyiv, and they were ruling in Volodymyr Suzdal, but the power is going to be moving north to the Grand Duchy of Vladimir. It's a real turbulent era in Kyiv history. So let's start with the sons of Monomakh. Mstislav I Vladimirovich Monomakh, also known as Mstislav the Great. He was the Grand Prince of Kyiv from 1125 to 1132. He was the eldest son of Volodymyr Monomakh by Githa of Wessex, the daughter of the last Saxon king of England, Harold Godwinson. His name shows up in the Norse sagas under the name Harold, to allude to his grandfather, Harold II. And Mstislav was, as his father's future successor, reigning in Velikhy Novgorod from 1088 to about 1093, and During that time, he really strengthened the fortifications of Novgorod, and that was also probably a good idea because Mstislav fought a lot of wars with the Cumans, the Estonians, the Lithuanians, and the Princedom of Polotsk, all between 1093, before he was Grand Prince, to 1131. He also defeated his uncle Oleg of Chernihiv on the Koloska River, and laying the foundation for centuries of hate between his descendants and Oleg's descendants. After Volodymyr Monomakh's death, Mstislav's seniority was unconditionally recognized by all of his brothers. But of the princely centers under his immediate control, originally, that was basically just Kyiv. And you can see on the map, there's a whole bunch of principalities to control. In 1095, Mstislav married Princess Kristina Ingesdotter of Sweden. They had 10 kids, 2 of whom would rule as Grand Prince of Kyiv: Iziaslav II of Kyiv and Rostislav of Kyiv. Kristina died in 1122. Later that year, Mstislav remarried. Of the 2 children from the second marriage, the daughter, Euphrosyne of Kyiv, married King Geza of Hungary, and through her, she was an ancestor of both Philippa of Hainault and King Edward III of England, hence all subsequent English and British monarchs. Through his mother Githa, he is part of a link between Harold II of England and the modern line of English kings founded by William the Conqueror, who deposed him. So, Mstislav I, or Mstislav the Great, dies in 1132, and his brother Yarapolk gets the crown of Kyiv, and he becomes Veliki Knyaz Yarapolk II. Okay, that sounds simple enough. It's not that simple, because this goes back to when Yaroslav the Wise was dying, and he divided up the different principalities, because there's a whole bunch of different principalities that belong to the Rus, and he divides them up amongst his sons. And he said, you got to play nice with each other, and the oldest brother, he's in charge, he gets Kyiv, and you guys all have to act like he's dad. And that fell apart. Okay, we're dealing with this now a couple of generations down the line. The problem has not gotten better. It's gotten a lot worse. So Yarapolk has to deal with all these family interests. And he's really got a headache with his brother Yuri Dolgoruki, or Yuri Longhands, which I think is a really cool name. And Yarapolk appoints his nephew, Mstislav's son, Vesvolod, who is prince in Novgorod. He tells him, you got to move over to Peroslavl. The people in Novgorod are really annoyed, and they're viewing this as a betrayal. And Vesvolod had said things like, I intend to die in Novgorod. Well, they don't really want him there. And so Yuri Longhands ends up taking over Novgorod, and there's becoming more drama. Okay, so Yarapolk ends up appointing another son of Mstislav, Iziaslav, to Peroslavl. Okay. And now there's just all this shifting, this swirling mass of which brother, which kinsman gets what territory. Oh, by the way, Yarapolk is, just like his older brother Mstislav, fighting against the Cumans as well. Oh, let's just add to the family drama. Earlier, I had spoken in another video about how the sons of Yaroslav were at war with each other. The guy in the middle that I drew a red box around and drew red arrows around, that's Sviatoslav Yaroslavich. He's going to, and his kinfolk are going to be a major cause for Kyiv's decline because everyone's fighting to get a hold of Kyiv. This is Sviatoslav's grandson, Vsevolod Olhovich, or Vsevolod, son of Oleg, who was Prince of Chernihiv. Well, Vsevolod has such a desire to capture the Kyiv throne, he enlists the aid of the Cumans in an attempt to do so. In spite of having Cuman allies, Vsevolod isn't successful. Yaropol gains a reputation as a great warrior in fighting against the Cumans and this alliance, and he manages to rule about something like 7 years, and in February of 1139 he passes on, and his brother Vyacheslav ends up reigning from February of 1139 until actually February 22nd of 1139 until March 4th of 1139, because he was driven out by Vsevolod, who now becomes Vsevolod II of Kyiv. He's going to maintain his grip on power by manipulating rival princely factions, playing one off against another. Dissatisfaction is going to arise amongst his subjects because they felt his rule was exploitive. His administrative officials were ruining the city. He was even clashing with the Kyivan Metropolitan Mikhail over the question of appointing bishops. And what he ended up doing is he finally decided he would step away. Instead of picking either of his two sons, Vsevolod had chosen his brother, Ihor, as his successor, and he obtained pledges from his subjects to accept Ihor as his heir by, according to one account, even having the Kyivans kiss the Holy Cross and swear loyalty, and that people were really resentful of. Now, the reason Ihor, or Igor, got appointed by his brother was his brother was hoping to establish a family claim to the throne. And he could have picked a better candidate, because the chroniclers accused Ihor of being dishonest and greedy and scheming and violent, all these princely qualities. He reigned less than 2 weeks before the Kyivans invited his cousin and his rival, Mstislav's son, Izyaslav, to be their prince. And Izyaslav was apparently supposed to have had a promise not to seek power. He changed his mind, and he attacked and defeated Ihor and Sviatoslav, Ihor's brother. Sviatoslav managed to escape. Ihor got bogged down in some marshes, couldn't get away, got captured, and Izyaslav had him thrown in a pit, and basically, Ihor languished there until 1146. He's desperately ill. He requests permission to become a monk. Izyaslav releases him, and Ihor becomes a monk at the monastery of St. Fedor in Kyiv under the name Ignati. So why is this person who's supposed to be lazy and scheming and all this stuff a saint? Well, In 1147, a mob attacked Ihor under the mistaken impression that he intended to usurp Iziaslav's throne. Iziaslav's brother, Volodymyr, tried to rescue Ihor, but the mob tore down a balcony on which Ihor had sought sanctuary, and they killed him. His body was dragged behind a cart and exhibited in a market before it could be salvaged by Volodymyr. And then miracles were alleged to have occurred around Ihor's body, and he was proclaimed a saint martyr. Iziaslav Mstislavich isn't going to be on the throne of Kyiv very long as Iziaslav II. And that first reign is going to go from August of 1146 to August of 1149. Great, that's his first time around. He's going to get deposed, but we're going to see him again. Yuri I, Vladimirovich, or Yuri Dolgoruki, or Yuri Long Hands, or Long Arm, or Far Reaching. He was the Prince of Rostov and Suzdal, and he was known for successfully curbing the privileges of the landowning boyar class in Rostov-Suzdal, and also for his ambitious building programs. He transformed this principality into the independent power that would one day evolve into early modern Muscovy. For all the interest he took in fortifying his northern lands, Yuri still wanted the throne of Kyiv. It was his active interest in things that are going on to the south that earned him the nickname of Long Hands, or Long Arm, or the Far-Reaching, kind of a Lord of the Rings thing. His arm has grown long. And when his elder brother Mstislav of Kyiv died in 1132, and the way one chronicler put it, the Rus lands fell apart, Yuri instantly jumped on that, and he declared war on pretty much everybody he could think of. The princes in Chernihiv, Yaropolk, his brother, who is the reigning Veliki Knyaz, or the Grand Prince. And then that kind of subsided. And then in 1147, he got interested again in the struggle for Kyiv. And in 1149, he captured it. But when he heard that Iziaslav was coming back with a big army, he bailed out. Okay. This should mean that, hey, since Iziaslav's approaching with a big army, Yuri runs away, Iziaslav's going to take the throne, right? No, that's not what's going to happen, because this is Slavic history and it's never easy. No, Yuri's brother, Vyacheslav I, who got deposed after reigning for a month in 1139, he's restored. Yay! And then Iziaslav gets into town, and Vyacheslav looks around and sees, hey, everyone wants Iziaslav to have the throne, so he abdicates in favor of Iziaslav, because the townspeople want him. Except that Iziaslav's going to get chased out again by Yuri that same summer of 1150, and Yuri's going to remain there until the winter of 1151, because he's going to get chased out by Iziaslav again, who manages to rule until his death in 1154, except that he's co-ruling with Vyacheslav. All right, let's make it more confusing. Iziaslav II dies in 1154. His co-ruler was Vyacheslav, except that when Iziaslav dies, it isn't Vyacheslav on his own who's ruling. It's another son of Mstislav. It's Rostislav. And he's going to be co-ruling with Vyacheslav until Vyacheslav dies in December of 1154. That means Rostislav's all on his own, right? Yeah, until January of 1155. And the guy who chases Rostislav out of Kyiv is one of the princes from Chernihiv, or one of the descendants of the princes from Chernihiv, that troublesome side of the Rurikid family, Izyaslav III. And he gets in January of 1155, and he's Grand Prince of Kyiv until March of 1155, because Yuri Long Hands or Long Fingers or Far Reaching, he comes back, and he's going to be there for a couple of years. And then Izyaslav III turns around, chases him out, and he basically stays for a year. Now, Mstislav II, the son of Izyaslav II, seizes the throne of Kyiv in December of 1158. And he ends up ceding the throne to Rostislav in April of 1159. Rostislav rules as Grand Prince of Kyiv until February of 1161, when he's chased out by Izyaslav again in February of 1161. But Izyaslav is going to be mortally wounded after a failed siege of Belgorod 2 months later. Okay, the throne of Kyiv is vacant again, and Rostislav is going to come back from wherever he was hiding, and that's in March of 1161. He's actually going to rule for like about 6 years. Okay. And when he passes on, Mstislav II ends up back on the throne. And he's going to rule for another 2 years. But by this point, the way things have been going in Kyiv, I'm sure with, the populace of Kyiv going, okay, who's in charge now? Power has shifted. And what's going to happen in March of 1161, there's going to be this coalition of princes that are up in the north there, led by the Grand Prince of the Vladimir Suzdal area, and that was Andrei of Vladimir. They end up sacking Kyiv. Okay, that's kind of a sign that Kyiv is kind of done. And they force the ruling prince to go away, all right? And Andrei appoints his brother as, the prince in Kyiv, but now there's not any of the connotations of the Grand Prince. So power has shifted to the north, and, it's going to shift to other principalities, but a lot of the focus is now going to be in the north. I didn't know a lot about this particular part of Russian history, and now I know why, okay? Because it got really complicated. But I hope this video makes it a little clearer. So, until the next time, do побачення.